What I have to say that, you know, I'm obviously impressed, like the entire panel here, and I'm sure you are, on how these cameras are interfacing, competing with the top cameras in the world that are exponentially more expensive, and they're more than holding their weight. There are more than enough times where I look at this screen today, or in general, and I say, no way, that's not shot with a GoPro. And it's just, it's not just one. Yeah, I thought that the stuff was shot with Cineflex, and he's like, no, it's a GoPro. I'm like, well, it was mounted on a Cineflex, right? He's like, no, it was strapped to the front of the helicopter. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me, you know? So, you know, I get to play a lot of the fun toys, you know, all the expensive cameras. I pretty much get to play with all the digital cameras out there today. And I just am constantly amazed at what GoPro has been able to pull off. But what really gets to me in a pretty visceral way is not how it's affected professionals. I think that outside of the brownie and maybe smartphones, I don't know that a camera has as much effect on how the everyday person interacts with photography and video. We've all seen the videos of all the bikers around the world, the bicyclists that are becoming activists with the use of GoPros, new filmmakers that are discovered every day, and there's just no tool out there that's kind of erased itself from the formula. You know, this is the ultimate fire and forget camera. You strap it on, you suction cup it onto something, and you go ahead and experience your life. And if you capture something, great. If you use 2 or 3 of them, the chance of you capturing a great multi-shot sequence is pretty much a done deal if you kind of know where to point it. And that to me is kind of a phenomenal thing about GoPro. And why I'm here today, because I think it's had an effect on our culture, and it's going to continue to, because of its size, its weight, the fact that it's weatherproof. The price point obviously is a really big factor, as you mentioned. But the fact that John Q. Public is obsessed with this camera and is using it and buying it by the hundreds, it seems, that excites me more than anything else. And I think that's what you call a game changer, not what you know, affects us prissy filmmakers looking for JPEG artifacting or lens choice, but what really changes everybody in society. So I think that's something that GoPro should really be applauded on, is just kind of changing the way that people interact with photography and filmmaking. When I heard about this announcement, I kind of said, okay, it's got to be 4K. That's what I called it, and I said, they're going to do a 4K camera, and it's just going to disrupt the crap out of the business. And I think it's going to send this shockwave amongst a lot of camera companies to kind of wake up and you know, realize that they're not the only players in the field right now, and that the quality we're seeing off these cameras is pretty stunning. And I just see this as the beginning for GoPro. You know, I see this as a step to so many more things. My imagination goes wild between interchangeable lenses, higher quality, to the point where, you know, who knows, you know, a tentpole film might be shot with a GoPro camera in 5 years at this point. This is the start of that possibility. So let's hope for those days. And what's amazing about this camera is the angles you can get, you know, and where you can put this thing. I'll leave it there.
Chase, since you've been kind of like the master of disruption over the years, how do you feel like this camera is going to disrupt the whole industry?
Well, I've had either the good or the bad fortune to sit in these big C-level meetings at I'm going to actually say the names, at the Canons and the Nikons and the legacy, I'm going to call them legacy because that's old, manufacturers. And I think there's still a place for those things. But I can tell you that their launch parties feel a little bit different than this one. So there's a saying that in photography that I helped popularize, which is the best camera is the one that's with you. And the thing that I love about, you know, you just made this great comparison to size. I forgot that I had one in my pocket. That's how small it is, for one. And then when you had it next to the OG, it occurred to me that that really is what we're seeing with a camera that's as small as it can go anywhere. And it's the future, it's life recorded. And I think we talk about angles and we talk about being able to put these things and we talk about breaking them, but I think what we're really saying is that we're actually able to capture life. And to me, that's the most disruptive thing that we could possibly be thinking of. And the Hero 3 is the first step there.
How you doing? Nick Woodman from the New York Times. You were saying that the best camera is the camera you have with you, and I'm just curious what you guys all think about, you know, this little device right here and how it plays into GoPro and what you see happening in the future with these two different things.
I'm all over that shit. So, sorry, I'm not, like, we gotta hear this. This is like, these are the quiet, super hard-working badasses, and we're like the loud, sort of like gangly party guys. So we'll let I'll move it over just a second, but to Mr. New York Times, to your question, I feel like this, you know,
Chase Jarvis!
I don't want to be too soapboxy, but I think it was really with the iPhone that I tried to repopularize that phrase, and that little device, you know, like these guys, I get paid well to travel 10,000 miles with a crew of 35 people and spend 4 or 5 weeks creating 3 or 4 pictures. And at the end of those days, weeks, months, I felt very hollow. Like, wow, really? This is, whether it's commercial or fine art, I felt like I wasn't actually serving the world. When the iPhone first came out, we started taking pictures of this. I think everybody's probably experienced this. There was a shift. And in developing the iPhone app, I said, if there's a way for me to help convert, instead of like being 50 million photographers, there's 5.5 billion active cell phone accounts. What if we could take the world's creative population and just not through doing anything, we don't have to sell them anything, just a change in their mind, we could turn that number into 5.5 billion people. Because creativity is the #1 natural resource that human beings have. So if we can empower them, we're on to a good start. How this thing relates to that thing, something tells me they're going to be happily married in the not too distant future. And we're going to be able to use that device to control cameras like these. Right now we have remotes, which are beautiful, but there's a synthesis between these technologies that I think you should go back and tell the people at the New York Times that you should really pay attention to this, because it's not just a panel at an event. It is the future I believe with every cell in my body. So the synergy between the cameras that people have with them all the time and the ones that we have with us some of the time, they're going to be closer and closer and closer, and that proximity is going to really unlock human creativity.
Yeah, I think the synergies, that's really the question. I think it's a very apropos question. And it's what I mentioned with the Brownie and how the smartphones have fundamentally changed the way the average person interacts with photography. And speaking of synergy, I happened to download the software the night before I did a shoot a week ago. And then it was from the top skate photographers, videographers in the world. And the ability, we were seeing, you know, an image that we were shooting our GoPro, and I was directing with my iPhone and iPad live. And the funny part was, I was reticent to go to my Epic or to my 5Ds because I couldn't see what the guys were shooting.
These are like $50 and $20,000 cameras that he's reluctant to go to.
And sure, I could have strapped on, you know, $15,000 transmitters onto those cameras.
You said
the same
strap on.
thing. But I'm using my iPhone or my iPad with the GoPro, and we're shooting some great stuff. And the funny part was that the shooters were like, hey, can you start and stop and you can change the settings? I'm like, what, did you forget how to push the button? Suddenly I was making fun of them. They're like, no, it's just so much cooler when you're doing it from there and you're changing all the menus from your iPhone. And it was so much more intuitive. And I think it's a perfect marriage. There is going to be that synergy between these two devices. And I think these are different types of approaches, though. I mean, this is a phone that I depend on for other things and taking pictures and video. So I'm only going to take certain risks with it, because if I lose this phone, I kind of lose contact with the rest of the world. Whereas the GoPro is the perfect tool to just go ahead and strap it on something and take some severe risks. Like we put this in danger on purpose. We try for shots you're not supposed to get, or that if you're using anything more than a $400 camera, you would just be downright irresponsible for trying it. And that's not a good thing. You want to try and capture the best possible imagery you can, and that's our job, and this is a tool that allows us to do that. And I think that's probably the perfect segue for you.
I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what it is. It's just you know, you want to go lose your iPhone and all your email contacts and your whole life, or you want to go junk a GoPro, because there's kind of a good heroic story in junking a GoPro. If you junk an iPhone, you're just a dumbass.
The smartphone question, because it's one that I'm super passionate about, because I fucking love the smartphone. The smartphone is one of the best things that ever happened to GoPro, because, let's face it, this thing, it's unlikely that in our lifetimes anything will unseat this as the all-time best, in the moment, reactive capture device.
You're a cyborg.
I'm a cyborg. I've always got it with me, and this is the perfect device for something's happening and I want to capture it now. No debate, that war has been won. But this is used reactively, right? Something's happening and I want to capture it. That's not the market, the consumer use case that GoPro addresses and solves. GoPro addresses the proactive capture use case, where I'm planning to go do something special, and I want to document it, and I want it to be immersive, and I want it to be engaging, and I want to capture multiple angles. And even if it's just one angle, I'm doing something that I care about, and I want to create something that other people will enjoy, and that they'll want to watch. And this is not the device that people use to do that. They use a GoPro. And that, I don't see changing anytime soon, because I know what the Hero 3 can do, and I know what we're working on back at headquarters. And as it relates to them working together, absolutely, this is a brilliant companion, because as you noted, now I can see what I'm about to shoot, and I can control my cameras that are scattered around the place with this. So this actually makes a GoPro, the world's most versatile camera, way more versatile than it was before. And you know the best thing? It'd be really expensive for GoPro to produce and sell a live video remote control, but 5.5 billion people around the world already freaking have one in their pocket when they're running the GoPro app on this thing. So it's genius. And from a business perspective, I love it, because people aren't wondering, oh, should I buy a Digital Elf or a Casio XLM or a, because this killed all of those. Now it's just smartphones, DSLRs, and GoPro.